meeting for the Municipal Budget Committee at 6:32. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. All right, so this is the organization meeting for the Municipal Budget Committee. We had, as of the town election, we lost our chair and our vice chair. And so we need to elect a chair, vice chair, and secretary for the 24-25 budget committee. Are there any nominations for chair?
I nominate Stacy Dion for chair.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, we can discuss it.
Yeah, I've just got some.
Put your mic.
I've just got some concerns, and that basically based in policy and where we're headed as a group. At least in my view, we've got to try to do something to get a handle on spending.
And so I agree. But in order for us to have a discussion about where the budget committee is headed, I think we should have a chair and a vice chair and a secretary as required by our RSA and our bylaws.
So there's no discussion.
Do you have discussion about who's chair
Fine, go ahead.
on the motion?
My intention is to vote present then.
So you don't want to
I'm going to vote present.
Okay.
Just a point of order. I don't know
Okay.
if it's
Yep.
appropriate.
Can you make sure when you speak you put your...
I just don't know
All right.
names to faces, and
That's
if we
fine.
could just do a little bit beforehand, I'd feel a little more comfortable.
Okay, that's fine. No problem. We'll just go around the room. Stacy Dion, this is my second term on Budget Committee.
Anne Marie Roth, I've been on the budget committee now for 5 years, 6 years.
Claudine Dias, I think this is my third year serving on the budget committee.
My name is John Pramberg. What, she did, you didn't,
I'm Cindy Mulcahy, I'm the recording secretary.
you didn't say anything and you weren't a member, and I was thinking you didn't want to say anything, that's all. I'm sorry.
Pamela Brown, currently on school budget committee as well. First time on town budget.
And I'm Barbara Ryan, I'm brand new. So I did not know you were the secretary. I'm counting numbers for quorum, so thank you very much for that. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to know who's who. And to my left?
Chuck Hart, Selectman's Rep.
So we are missing one elected person, and that's Gary, and he is, he has a medical issue and could not attend. All right. So do we have?
As a point of order, you could have a discussion prior to electing officers, just in general. I mean, it wouldn't, I mean, technically, you don't have, there's no right or wrong.
We can't,
way,
yeah, we won't have, I'm just trying to stick to agenda, so, yeah.
So we have a motion.
And we have a second.
Are we going to vote?
vote? You want to vote?
Yeah.
Go ahead. All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's get
Oh.
get the organization done here, then we can, unless you're challenging the
Well,
chairman.
so I don't want to just go into things blindly. I'm interested in what he has to say about. I'm interested in seeing what he's talking about. I don't want to just vote on something blindly just because we are trying to organize, but he had some concern about, I'm assuming, the organization?
You
Or
really
am
just
I-
proved my point. You just proved my point as to what my concerns are. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that the votes lined up, and I don't have a problem with that. This isn't my first rodeo. But you've never called me about it. I have no idea what your vision is. You haven't asked me what my concerns are, and yet...
I haven't talked to anybody about it.
You haven't talked to anyone about
I
becoming chair.
said I would like to be, but I haven't.
Okay. Just go ahead and run the meeting how you want.
You don't need to vote for chair. Do you have another nomination for chair?
No.
So we voted. What was, show of hands again. This is crazy. Show of hands for the chairperson. Okay, so it's, whatever that number is.
And one present, is that right?
Opposed?
Present.
Okay. It's abstention. Okay.
Thank you.
601. So we need a vice chair. Is there anyone interested in being vice chair?
I would nominate John Cranberg.
Yeah, I don't know how wise that is, right, moving forward. We've got a full plate.
If you don't think you can make some of the meetings, and that.
No, I've always made the meetings. I think I've missed one meeting in 4 or 5 years. That's not the point. It's the bigger picture. Well, what, do you object to just,
Go ahead.
no, what?
I'm trying to see, because we don't have a
You're
chair, we
trying to
don't have.
control things. That's what you're trying to do. Somebody wants to discuss something. What's the big deal? This isn't like a 40-member body.
No, I'm just trying to go through the agenda and get through what we need to get through so we can update the documentation we need to update. I don't have if you want to discuss it, discuss. I'm not sure what you want to discuss.
What do you view as the priorities, and what are the top couple of things that you'd like to do differently or like to make a priority over the next year?
For the budget committee?
Right.
I want to make sure we are reviewing expenditures. The spreadsheet that I sent out today to everyone to show what was given back and what was not given back. And we need to look at controlling where our spending is going and why is it going that high?
Okay, let me lay my cards on the table. We've got to figure out a way as a community to start controlling spending. Spending is up well over 30% over the last few years, probably close to 40%. I don't blame anybody for that. I take my share of blame for that, but something's got to be done differently. There isn't a centralized executive, which in my experience is usually what controls spending and sets priorities and sets the course. We have a town form of government with a lot of divided authority. But where the buck stops is this committee. The concern that I have is, for instance, with all good intention, at the very first meeting last year, you made the active shooter training a priority, and you talked about increasing spending. My view of things, and based on my experience, that unfortunately sent a bad signal to the entire bureaucracy. The Budget Committee wasn't particularly going to be tough on spending. The same thing happened with the salary matrix. So, again, with good intentions, not questioning anyone's motives, but spending is out of control. So, you know, Kim Donahue, who went off the committee out of frustration, circulated everybody, I believe it's Section 5B under the statute about a spending cap.
Correct?
I'd like to know that if I wanted to bring that in, that would get a fair hearing. But I'm not getting a good vibe about that tonight. You're a very powerful personality, and I have no issue with that, but I think the chair has got to be somebody that is neutral and is going to make everyone feel that their points, all points of view, are being treated fairly.
So if you want to look at what my list of budget committee items are, I wanted to talk about policies and procedures, the tax cap, and the fiscal calendar.
So that would have been nice to talk. In other words, I'm used to having that type of stuff laid out in front of me beforehand.
Okay.
You know, you have had discussions with other members. Some you have, some you haven't. That isn't a good, that's not a good signal to send, in my opinion. That's all.
Yep. Go ahead.
I'll try not to have a big mouth. But I guess I understand what he's saying, but if I remember correctly, you are the secretary, correct?
Correct.
So I guess I wouldn't want to see you out soliciting with your ideas. I think everybody should have ideas, which I think is great. I think once your structure is in place, then everybody should put out on a fair table what their intents and vision for the future is. So you're now the chair. Mm-hmm. I guess I would suspect, and usually you will run the meeting and people will speak, vote.
Correct.
Maybe you, in other places, chairs I've been, voted last. You guys can do whatever your procedural is from there. But I do think it's important, yay, nay, or not, to hear everybody's vision. He's uncomfortable with being vice chair. I got the feeling he's got a full plate. Maybe he's going to decline the nomination, and maybe...
I don't think whether I'm vice chair or not is important. What I think is important is to have an understanding of how things are going to be run, and that, you know, for instance, your first priority was...
Policies and procedures.
And the second?
Tax cap.
No, there was one about monitoring spending.
Part of our policies and procedures that we have not followed is to monitor expenditures.
We talked about doing that last year, right?
We did.
Yeah.
And,
so how is that going to be done?
Well, you got the spreadsheet today that talked about what they gave back year to date, and that on a quarterly basis we'll review what the expenditures are versus the current budget.
So we're planning on meeting in May and August, thereabouts?
Correct. Yep. That was proposal, if we all agree to it, to monitor expenditures.
The numbers that came out today of funds that were returned to the town does not mean we are going to reduce these departments' budgets by that amount of money.
Correct.
I just want that up front.
It's just, it showed us what they returned to town or what they spent over their budget line item.
Right, okay.
Last year.
Last year.
Yes. But if the town clerk returned, say, $15,000, it doesn't mean we're going to reduce her budget from 95 down to 80. I just wanted that.
Correct. And I think it was just a good piece of paper to get out so that we could start the discussions of monitoring expenditures and where we're at, or where we were at the end of last year, and how to go about that this year.
So I would like to nominate Barbara Ryan for vice chair.
Well, we have a nomination. Do we, point of order, can I take another nomination? We haven't closed that one out yet.
We didn't have a second on John.
Yeah, we did. Claudine,
Did we?
yep,
He's got to want to accept it first.
yeah. Okay. All right. All right, so,
What do you think?
I think it's up to you whether or not you want to accept the nomination.
What's in the best interest of the group working together?
Well, I think regardless of who's the vice chairman, that's the title to cover for the chairman. Doesn't interfere with whatever you've got to say or do or want to do. It's just a matter of, the law says we have to have one. If she's not here, then you don't need.
The vice chair is just going to cover.
It doesn't change.
Well, if you
When the
make me
chairman's
vice
out.
chairman, that'll ensure she's at every meeting, even if she has to come off of her deathbed.
You're gonna pick her up and drive.
wow. Not necessarily. I already know I have vacation scheduled during budget cycle in October, so.
I was under the impression that it was more than just backup. I thought that.
It is.
Let's go. I thought that the chair and the vice chair would work together to help guide us, that there's a balance.
How do you feel about that?
I would love to work with you, John. I actually,
You're turning beet red.
I think that we may look at things differently, but I think that we're both trying to do the same thing.
Well,
Yes.
based on those two heads over there, and it's not that I'm ignoring you, but I've worked with them for years. If that's what you want to do, fine. I will, and you know that I'll pitch in and do it. But I mean, for example, I just became chairman of the trust funds, okay? You were on the trust fund, she's laughing. I have strong opinions, but as chairman, I have to conduct myself very differently. You're a very strong-willed person. I have no issue with that. I respect that. But I would hope that in leading the group, that you have to set that aside.
Yes. I understand that.
I actually think it would be great for you two to work together because you have a lot of questions
I'd rather
and
be pecked to death by a gaggle of geese.
you have a lot of questions and that you're asking for answers to, and working with Stacy instead of just asking on the floor.
Yep.
I think it would be very good, because then you could both come to the meeting and be one with, one with the ideas.
At least there won't be any surprises. And Chuck, you made the nomination. You still feel the same way?
I do.
All right. So be it.
So
You take a vote.
you can still, well, you have to,
I have two nominations.
that's the second.
It wasn't seconded, I don't think.
No, it wasn't. Okay, we'll take a vote for John Pramberg to be vice chair. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, all in favor. What's the count? 7-0. All right. So we have one more position. We have a secretary. So the secretary acts if the chair and the vice chair are not available. They run the meeting. They also work with the recording secretary to get the minutes published. They also distribute the bylaws to all the committee to make sure that they have the bylaws and that they are updated on an annual basis. Anybody like to be secretary?
I would recommend Claudine.
No?
No, I've got a lot of travel coming up and stuff, and I need to be flexible.
Barbara?
I have no idea to where to even begin.
Okay.
So to be
Yeah.
all fair,
No,
that
that's
seems
fine.
like a whole lot of, no offense.
So, Anne Marie?
No one else.
There's no one else. Oh, Gary. Are you interested in being secretary?
Sure.
Okay. I nominate Anne Marie.
Second.
All right. All those in favor for secretary Anne Marie? All those in favor? Opposed? Oh. 7-0. All right. All right. We do have, so now we're all set. We have 2 people who have sent emails saying they're interested on being on budget committee. Trish has sent an email of interest. I've asked her to send in a letter of intent, as well as Martha, and I'm gonna screw up her name. Jacquith? Jacquith? Correct, she ran for the school board. Yep, she just whacked it.
Jaquith.
Yes. And she ran for the school board budget committee, and I've asked her to send in a letter of intent, and she hasn't. So though we are asking them to send in letters, people to send in letters of intent to be on the budget committee. We have 5 open positions for budget committee at this time.
Do we need one from Trish where she's been on the committee?
I need,
Just trying to figure out how to get out of the way. No, get it done, I mean, accomplish it.
I have 2, I just have just 2 people. Trish sent me an email today. I mean, I could just say that's the letter of intent, and we have her letter, and we can appoint her if we take a vote.
I'm familiar with the other lady only because I attended candidates night. I mean,
Okay.
Did she send you an email?
She sent me an email saying I lost the school one, so I can help out. That's what she said. So I kind of need a little more to say I would like to be on the budget committee.
What about just copying that, forwarding it to the committee right now, and then just vote them?
Okay.
I mean, it's just.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with appointing them.
What do you think?
I have no idea about procedure.
There's nothing in the bylaws of the statute.
Microphone.
I don't know, John, because I know that when I came on board, I don't know what Chuck did behind the scenes, but he asked if I wanted to be on,
Yeah.
and in my naivete, I said, sure, that'll be fun.
I would say if we didn't know the people, I can see even asking for a resume in advance, but both of these people are known and clearly competent people.
Yeah.
I would just,
I don't know that to be true, so I would have to say I would have to abstain from voting on
Okay.
either one. No, I realize now who you are from there, but the email of I'm available now or whatever.
So I just
And my
asked,
but my first impression is like, are you kidding me? Like, but that's me. No disrespect to her, but a lot of enthusiasm there. I'm excited.
so we can just
I
ask.
think a letter of intent.
I think a letter of intent would be fine, and we'll distribute them to the budget, and then at the next meeting, we'll have to vote to appoint them. Is everyone good with that? We'll ask for letters of intent. And then we'll distribute and vote on.
I think it's cleaner.
Yeah.
So the only question I would have with that is fine, except for the fact that they have to be sworn in.
Yeah.
And if they're appointed for the next meeting, and there's nobody here to swear them in for the next meeting, then they gotta go and wait again. So I guess my question is, they send the letter of intent in by email. The email is sent out with the names and the letters of intent for the two people. Can the board vote to say, yes, we would accept them, so that they, I don't know what the email laws are, with that.
So,
Just so they can be there for that night and be able to.
But
I'm assuming everybody here has been sworn in.
I guess I would want to look up the.
so I would say, the selectmen, do they take their appointments for any board without going to the select board meeting and having a vote? I would say it would be no different. The budget committee would need to do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just prolongs it. It may prolong it again, that's all. Because unless we can.
Get a quorum to just meet at Tammy's office, maybe,
Yeah.
and vote?
Yes.
Would that be
As
satisfactory?
long as you post it.
Yeah.
Yes, as long as we post
Or
it.
they could come to the next meeting, they just would not be able to vote.
Or if we do it, we can ask Tammy to be at the next meeting and she can swear them in as soon as we agree to.
Hold a special meeting.
Yep.
to Review them, vote, and then make.
And then come in. Yep. Barbara?
All due respect, again, as far as the timeline goes, boy, we've had open seats for a long time, so if it was held back a little bit longer, then that's what it is. You have a way of going through the process. I knew about it for a while. I signed up. There are people, you could have signed up, and if it was over too many people and you lost, be it. Don't all of a sudden at the 11th hour, we need somebody, so we rush through procedural. That sends a very loud message. Hey, I don't have to do anything. I'll just wait and I'll get on or whatever.
Yeah.
A special meeting, fine.
Yeah.
That's your job to call, and everybody has it and can go from there.
Right.
That's
So
what we sign up for.
I'll ask the town to post for letters of intent again for the 5 open positions, and see if we get anything. In the meantime, the organizational meeting, we are supposed to assign liaisons, which is the next item on the agenda, liaisons to the different departments. So we can do that tonight, or we can wait till we see if we have any liaisons to assign them. So with the liaison, it is, a liaison is working with the department to go over their budget, make sure they have everything they need in order, and get them ready to meet with the budget committee and present their budget to budget committee.
Each person generally has, I think,
2 or 3, but,
depending on how many the numbers
yeah.
are.
So with 7 people, we would each have to have we would each have 3 budgets to review.
How about if everybody expresses one preference and then we which would be the main departments probably.
That's fine.
And then we wait for the new members to get appointed so that they can then, because if we divvied everything up tonight and then we have 3 new members come on,
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we could also wait until the next meeting if we wanted to. We'll take, go ahead. Please come forward.
I'm just gonna speak up as one of the people that's putting in a letter of intent. I wouldn't want to put in a letter of intent if I wasn't gonna get a liaison position.
Right.
You know, because that is a big part of what you're doing. So you might want to just hold off on those until you get other people, especially if
Yeah.
you're adding, you know, possibly 2, 3, 4 more people to the board, hopefully to make a few more numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all. Thank you.
Until we are certain how many members.
Sorry.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, so here I go again. Were you on it and didn't renew to come back on? And now all of a sudden a letter of intent to go? I guess maybe that wasn't fair to ask that question like that.
That's fine.
So, yes, I was on the budget committee previously, served 1 term. I did not run again because this past January, I had a business trip in January, so I missed the 2 big meetings. And I know that I'm gonna have that trip again next January. So I didn't think it was fair to take a spot if the spots were filled by other people who could be there. We're in a position for the budget committee where we don't have enough people to fill the entire committee. I can work through the fall, but I won't be here in January. And I think that that's better than having an empty seat. So I am available, I'm willing to help out. I'm more than happy to be here again. It's just that I know that I won't be here for those 2 meetings.
Okay. However, I guess another precedent you may, which I think that's commendable. However, are you going to put off something every time if we don't have enough? What if your letters of intent aren't there and you've let time, you're worried about time go by? I would say I think supporting at least the larger departments are one.
So
I don't think you can just continue to just keep what if they sign up?
No.
And
If I
let's
may.
hold this off because
Go
if
ahead.
they sign up. And
So, if I can speak to that, normally, we don't get assignments until the first meeting's normally August, September for the budget committee. So if we hold off on the assignments until May, we're still ahead of the game.
okay, so I guess then I go back to what John said. Then let's see where, I mean, okay, this is now new, so assigning them out is new, meeting is new. Can we have a better explanation of that process so that we know why we're holding off? And you know, I assumed if you're gonna just start working at it, not,
So,
am I making sense?
no, you
Do I
are.
make sense?
So I'm trying to follow the bylaws.
Yeah.
And so the bylaws state right after the election, the budget committee is to hold an organizational meeting, choose that, and assign the liaisons. It is what that is stated in the bylaws, so I want to make sure we're following it. I think some of that was done in past years so that they could work with that. They would assign a department, work with the budget, but then also potentially go back to that department to ask about expenditures if the budget committee had any questions while we were reviewing expenditures, to review the expenditures. So
If I could, it also gives the department head a focal point to communicate with the budget committee. And each of them are different, and they may want to reach out to you over the summer and begin to talk about what it is that they do, or if there's something major going on in their department. It gives them someone on the budget committee to whom they can communicate.
So I'm trying to do that up ahead of time so that we can, I think last year there was some miscommunication between the budget committee and department heads and and the select board and finance, and we had a hard time sometimes getting the numbers when we should. So I want to just jump ahead and try to get that as per the bylaws and get everything set so we can start working on the budget and pull things together. That's just the intent
Honestly,
of this. That was the intent of this meeting, was just to get it organized and assign people.
I think if we reached out to our department heads in April, they would all drop dead. You know, they're used to seeing us, they're used to seeing us late summer, early autumn. What?
It's far too early, you're right.
Yeah.
And even trying to.
I mean, this was ambitious. This was an ambitious agenda. But it's better to have too much on the agenda than not enough.
Yeah.
And to be fair, if we're gonna start meeting quarterly about this year's budget, which we should be doing, and it's recommended, you know, it's clearly contemplated in the state statute.
Yeah.
They need a person to talk to.
I agree.
You know.
And we can convey to them what our goals are as a budget committee this year. We want to keep spending steady. We want to have X percentage cut or a cap or something. But, I don't think we're hurting anything to put it off right now. I really don't.
And we can call it a special meeting when we know there are 2 interested people. We can distribute the letters of intent and call a special meeting if we want to hold it. We would need only a 24-hour notice, so we could do that.
So I have a
motion on the floor, correct. Any further discussion? All those in favor in holding off on assigning liaisons until we have our letters of intent? Aye.
Aye.
7-0. Opposed? No. All right. I also distributed the bylaws as required so that everyone had a copy of the bylaws. I didn't know if anyone had any, so some of this we can update, and some of it we are held to the RSA. There is just one thing I wanted to bring to people's attention. We do have a firm 12 in the bylaws. The RSA says that our municipal budget committee can be 3 to 12. It's a small update, but it allows us to say 3 to 12, any range in between that. And then we could, that one, and then did want to bring to everyone's attention that it does say one member of the Board of Selectmen shall be on the board, and they are a voting member, but there is legislation right now removing the select board member from the municipal official budget committee. They would be a representative, but non-voting. It has not passed yet, but it is something that I want to make. It's at the state level, and they are working on it. There's a couple other things. They are also looking to update the tax cap section of the RSA as well, RSA 32, and what's allowable for a tax cap and what is not. And so that is a couple of legislative pieces that are going through the state right now. So we'll be watching those to make sure how they affect us moving forward. Chuck will be our liaison. It's whether or not he gets to vote or not. It's not me. The one on the tax cap, I just read about it, I read something about it today, so I'm not sure. So it's, right now, I think they're in the House and they're going to the Senate. But,
Did it pass the House?
the tax cap one, I believe, did, and it's going to the Senate. And it's to update and to allow for school board. So then, along with the 12, we do,
So the proposal is to allow a tax cap to apply against education, not merely the town?
both, correct, school and town, and then allowing the town to be able to adjust that tax cap based on inflation, or the CPI index, the consumer index. So then there's a couple, just with that, there's a quorum. There's actually says quorum is 7 for the budget committee. I just want to update I'd like to propose updating it to say the budget committee is 3 to 12 and that the quorum is 50% plus 1. That's defined in Robert's rule, that it's 50% plus 1 is quorum.
50% plus 1 of those attending, or 50% plus 1?
Of the board, of the actual board. So if we had 7 members, we would need 5 to have quorum.
4.
50% plus 1, 7, 3.5, 4 plus 1, 5, right? Did I do that wrong?
Yeah.
3. Wait, half of 7 is 3.5. We're 7.
We only have 7, if we end up with just 7.
So your
I'm sorry.
contention is that if the membership is 7, a quorum is 5?
The law, the Roberts law that we are required to, I'm just going with, it's 50% plus 1. I looked it up.
Right, but so it's
So-
1/2 rounded up. So if it's 3, you round it up to 4. If you had, if your membership was 6, it would be 4.
So when I looked up the Roberts Rule of Order and Voting,
Yes.
it is 50% plus 1 for a majority to have quorum, but I could be wrong.
So that's to have quorum after the meeting.
Correct.
But that would mean for the select board, we have to have 4 people. Right? So, and we don't do that, it's 3. So,
Okay, I'm just
I'm just trying to follow the logic.
I'm just reading what was given to me to follow, so.
What's a quorum of 3?
3.
Would be
Yeah.
3, with that logic, yeah. 5, 4, but I'm just 50%,
It's 5 to 8, it's 9,
right?
it's 6.
I can update the bylaw, I'm proposing to update the bylaw so that we're working within.
That's what you're trying to do anyway, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just trying to do that. So that, because right now it says 7 as quorum.
How often has there not been a quorum with the number 12?
With the number 12,
Well, it's never been the number 12 when I've been doing it for a long time.
Okay, so then you should be adjusting the bylaws down to where it's pretty reasonable
correct.
to go
That's
from
all
there.
I'm trying to do.
Correct. So did you have a number in mind?
I was just gonna do.
I'm just curious
Yeah,
if you know,
so-
you have done some research, so,
So the law says 3 to 12.
right.
I think with the 3 to 12,
No.
and then 50% of the actual
So I'm
board.
looking at a table under Robert's rules. Total number of members, 5, quorum 3. Total numbers of members, 6, quorum 4. Total number of members, 7, quorum 4.
Okay,
So if it was 1/2 plus 1, under 7, it would be 4.5.
so it would be 4.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So if it's 11, it's 6. If it's 12, it's 7. If it's 13, it's 7.
So they round down, I round it up.
Yeah, they run it up to,
Okay. We're good. That's,
You can just take that table and insert it into the bylaws, so it's cut and dried, right?
yeah, you know what I'm,
yes,
If we all agree.
yes. Especially since we're not at 12, but we can't have more than
I
12.
just texted it to you, the document,
Oh, thank you, John.
it's right there.
What am I
I
gonna
don't
do?
have anybody else's cell phone number. So it's, you can see how it's all, it's an academic document.
Yeah, that's fine. So, yeah, so I just am recommending that we update the bylaws for the numbers, a minimum, so that we are following our bylaws, since we're not, probably not gonna get 12 people.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? No further discussion?
Actually,
Okay.
you know what? As I read this, this is what it says in our current, a majority of the membership, and then it has in parentheses 7,
Yeah.
including the Board of Selectmen representative of the Kingston Municipal Budget Committee shall constitute a quorum necessary to transact business, etc. If you just took out the number 7, you'd be done.
Right,
It'd
but
be a
then I would update up in the top where it says we have 12 members. And I would say, as per RSA, we are required to have 3 to 12 members.
Or up to 12 members.
Up to 12, yeah. Because it says consist of and 7, and I want to make sure that we're following them correctly.
We vote?
Yes. All those in favor of making those adjustments?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm honestly would be more comfortable waiting until we, along with the liaison thing, to have the full complement before we start putting stuff in hard and fast numbers.
It wasn't hard and fast, it was,
We're not following.
Okay.
My concern is right now we are not following our bylaws, and I want to update them to just represent at least the numbers. We can evaluate the bylaws moving forward if we want to adjust anything else.
Okay. Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right. Or 7-0. All right. John, you have that look. Are you okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was thinking of my son who's over in Ireland for 6 months.
All right, so I did put a budget committee schedule, but it was more to just talk about the next meeting, and setting that up. So, I'd like to try to do it on a quarterly basis, so we can review expenditures. So that next meeting would be like the last week of April, the first week of May. But I would try to schedule a special meeting to get the liaisons as soon as I get the letters of intent. I'll give it a week and then I'll send them out. Any discussion? recommendations.
So if you're thinking quarterly, April, July, October, we'll start in earnest in October.
Correct. So I would, yeah, so it would be April, May, July/August, and then we would start budget.
How realistic, what's a realistic expectation of getting good numbers for the June 30 quarter from the finance office?
From finance?
Yeah. Because you don't want to schedule it for the end of July if it's not really realistic.
Well, I put July/August, April/May. I want to talk to her to say, after you close the quarter, how long would it take to get us updates? And then work with her to schedule that meeting.
And the other suggestion that I would have is that we get that printout. If we were meeting on a Monday or Tuesday, that we have it by Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. I'd like to send it out at least a week ahead of time, but.
Or at least 4 or 5 days.
Yep.
I was going to suggest a change to the bylaws to have that in writing. Agendas and related meeting materials shall be provided to members at least 72 hours before, because we got something today, like 4 hours before the meeting. Or
That was just not for discussion, just kind of a heads up data
Sure.
that comes out of the
That's fine,
town.
I'm just saying, we can't get stuff the day of, it's not going to happen.
So that has been an ongoing issue with getting data to Budget Committee in a timely manner with scheduled meetings. We have tried to work through it, but when we start getting a bunch of budget cycles, we do get data updates. If a department is waiting for a number to come in, they may update finance. She may send an update to us the day of the budget meeting. So I think that I don't necessarily.
So here's my thought, and I shared this once with you in an email on this issue.
Yeah.
Finance people, accounting people, have a tendency of allowing the perfect to become the enemy of the good. So for instance, we're better off getting figures as of May 20th, 5 days before the meeting, than we are getting perfect figures on June 20th, when the meeting is June 20th or even the 21st. So that has to be in my opinion, the driving force about that is not allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good, which is what I think has happened. At least that's my observation.
Okay.
And we have to remember, last year was the first year that we had the new finance director. And a lot of this information that she had to develop and bring in, at that time, which kind of delayed getting it, as you say, John, like if you want it on the 1st, we get it on the 1st, but, and she's come a long way, and I don't think that'll be as big of an issue this year as it was last year.
But I think if we set our agenda and we set our schedule ahead of time, if we're starting now instead of we started in November last year, we had 8 meetings in 6 weeks or something like that. It was a lot, and data was getting updated and we were being reviewed. So if we start earlier, we will not be pushing everything through the finance director to update twice a week, because we're having meetings, budget meetings twice a week. So we were having them on Sundays and Wednesdays last year for most of November. And so I think that if we had them on Sunday, then we turned around and had another budget meeting on Wednesday. We did that for about 4 weeks last year. I think that turned into a lot of turnaround of spreadsheets and time, so we need to try to not do that this year, so we don't get last-minute data. So a guidance of 5 days prior to meetings, is that what we're all looking for?
Yeah, that
It
sounds
would be
good to
nice,
me.
but I wouldn't.
Well, we
Cut
don't
that in
need,
stone.
we don't need up-to-the-minute information.
Right, exactly. So to take what she's saying and make it start, if we're meeting at the end of July and she can't give us June's figures 3 or 4 days in advance, give us May's figures.
Yeah.
Because we'd be much better off having 4 or 5 days to sit down and go through May than we would be to have.
Or if the meeting is, as you say, if the meeting is June 25th, she might have it up to date June 20th, rather than to the day. Rather than even, or you could do, like you say, John, go to the, have it at least up to the end of May, or the end of June, whatever the month is.
Right.
Cool. All right.
And it doesn't need to
Sorry.
be,
Okay, so your meetings, you're saying quarterly. Quarterly from, the budget was just passed, so quarterly is June, the end of June. But you're saying April, May.
Well,
What would you
First
cover in
quarter,
April?
first quarter, because you're running 3 months in arrears. So you ran January, February, March.
Right.
So you ran against the budget. So at the end of March, you know, at the last week of April, beginning of May, review year-to-date for the first quarter. And then,
So, you're a selectman, I'm not being a wise guy, so.
Yeah.
Aren't you seeing by the end of April, the beginning of May, don't you get a 3-month report? For, well, actually, when was the election?
It was last week.
12th or something.
Last week?
Oh, okay.
Whatever,
So
it's
that
true.
isn't fair, but,
Time ago.
so, but aren't you getting, well, in May, won't you be getting the first 4 months of the year?
We haven't set that schedule yet on what we want the finance director to provide that data, but it should be in line, because from an observation for last year, the amount of work levied upon the finance director from the budget committee was unreasonable, and like the constant turnaround, it was unreasonable, and it impacted operations of the town is what it did. So from a select person's perspective, I would like to see, as you're setting your schedule, that deadlines are, and then you stick to them, right? To alleviate the last minute, I can't look at this data and make a, 2 minutes before the meeting, and then on the finance director's part too, so she can plan better. But, I don't think, John, I don't think we would levy the select board, I don't think we would levy, we would wait to see maybe what the chair of the budget committee comes up with for a schedule. It should be in line, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to see an off month from the finance director, that wouldn't make any sense.
no, I think
So
a lot of
through-
it.
Through September, we don't need to be looking at monthly figures. Now that I think about it, though, I don't know how reasonable it is to get a first quarter figure quickly, because the budget wasn't passed by the voter
Exactly.
until a week or two before the end of the quarter.
Except that they
spent
spent starting January 1st on the new budget.
Because
And
of the
that-
way we do it, it is, yeah.
It is,
But there's no, but what data are you gonna see in the first 3 months that you can't wait till the 6-month mark?
You don't know until you see it.
Well, you're right, but I also know that austerity spending has been in play for the last, for the first 2 months, because we don't know if the budget was gonna pass, so people were
Right.
spending like they didn't have it, not like they had it.
I think it's just, I'm just talking about it from the RSA perspective and getting into a schedule of reviewing it on a quarterly basis and to look at expenditures. But I think if we look at it, I'll just say, if we look at it in March and we see a budget line item, and then we look at it in June, and that budget line item is didn't go up or didn't get spent equally, we might ask questions of how that got spent, why, what happened.
The other thing, if you start doing this in an orderly way, and you might even wait till late July, early August and do the first 6 months and forget about the first quarter, but if you do this stuff in an orderly way, we might have figured out that we were underfunded in the assessment account more quickly. Somebody would have said, well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? If you're starting to look at this stuff more regularly.
I think the sooner you set a schedule and you stick to it and then don't fudge it, right? Like, give it 20 days after month close, after quarter close, and that's it. I mean, that's plenty of time.
Is it?
Sure.
Yes.
Because I'm perfectly
Absolutely
willing
it
to
is.
listen to the fact that, like, for the June quarter, it can't really be ready until August 10th.
There's no way.
Okay, all right, I'm open-minded.
You better fire the finance director.
My thing is April, May, July, August, and then we would start in September, October, getting ready for the budget. I know that, you know, I think November was a push last year. I think it was tough, but those are kind of my, you know, my thought. If we want to review expenditures, like we should be reviewing them, start with the data from last year. What we got today was year to date of what was returned. I think that if we take a look at that and then we look at where we are right now.
And I'll be honest, I publish financial statements, and after you run them, you find stuff. You know, we're gonna have many eyes looking at a quarterly report and maybe nip something in the bud sooner rather than later.
Yep.
So I don't think it's gonna hurt to review these with Paula. I found Paula to be incredibly accommodating to everything that we need. I did not know that town business was being...
Everything was trumped for the budget.
Yeah. It was...
Not to say things that didn't need to get done were pushed aside.
Okay.
And it was really chaotic for everybody concerned, and I really don't wanna, you know, hopefully we can save everybody that headache.
Yeah, we don't want to try to do multiple meetings in a week. I think that's difficult for everyone involved.
Or you just be clear. Or you just be clear in what the ask is, because the feedback that we were getting was that, and now they're asking for this, and now they're asking for this, and now they're asking for that. And that's the feedback that we got consistently. So it's early yet, you guys need to form, but be clear in what your asks are, right? Because then everybody knows going in, because it's not fair to everybody at the end when there's 5 spreadsheets going on because this person wanted to see this and this person wanted to see that, and there's another meeting, and it just got really, really crazy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be that way, right? I mean, it doesn't
We
need.
tried to streamline it, and then there were one-offs. And so we want to make sure that when we're asking for data, that we get the data that we want and that we need, and that we're giving them time to put it together, and that the other thing is, if we're asking for a specific department, that we don't just ask the finance person, we let the department head know that we are looking at XYZ, can you get us information, so that they understand. We could be discussing something about their budget at a budget meeting, and that they may want to attend. Because I think last year, we asked Paula a lot of questions about specific budgets, and the department heads weren't there, and she had to go back and get updates and things like that, and I want to make sure we don't do that, and we try to streamline the process.
And sometimes she answers with a numerical answer, which is what a finance person does, and there's often a reality underneath those numbers that completely rejigger your head, that the number doesn't mean what it appears to me. And that's fair.
Do we have a motion on
All
the
right,
floor?
motion on the floor for,
Oh, we do, okay.
no, I don't have a motion on the floor. We're still discussing meetings, we're discussing, so, our next meeting, we would have a special meeting scheduled for the appointees. Our next meeting would be in April and May, and I'll get with Paula to say what is reasonable, and then we'll send everybody a tentative schedule, and then you can just get back to me and we can try to publish that.
Because it might be good to have her come and talk with us, because a lot of what I think is delaying her, based on when I was in government before, is that she can give us she can punch something that has the numbers as of a certain date, but she's waiting for a bunch of paperwork to come from departments, and she feels that if she punches the number and gives us what she has in the computer without inputting that paperwork, that,
Right.
you know, it's like she almost feels like she has to close the books every month as if it were the end of the year, and she's preparing for the auditors, and she really doesn't have to do that.
No, we just want to, we want a snapshot, and just to review it, and it doesn't need to be perfect. She just needs to run the report to give us what she has entered to date, just so that we can monitor it. But I will, request that she attends our next meeting.
We shouldn't that's just a suggestion.
Yeah,
to
no.
make life easier for her. That's it. I'm not
No.
requesting it.
Are we going to shoot for Wednesday nights?
What?
Are we shooting for Wednesday night meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
If that's what people would like. Wednesday night, we actually, believe it or not, it's in our bylaws that we meet on Sunday nights.
Every meeting?
Yep.
Oh, do we need to have a bylaw committee or something?
I know, but they need to. I've read them twice.
There's a whole bunch, you
There's
can
a
reduce
lot
that to 2.5 pages.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that doesn't really have to be there, that's just pulled out of the state statute.
Yes.
We have
I
to
agree.
obey the state statute anyway. There's no
Yes.
reason to put that in a bylaw.
I agree.
So, but
If you
There's
want to
no
send
harm
me
in
your
it.
updates, I can update and redistribute to the committee. But I want to get a couple of those updates done so that we are, did you make a motion to have Wednesday nights?
No, I was just asking.
I will.
Well, what's everybody's feelings?
There
I
should not
mean,
be any restrictions on what nights we have it. I mean, I ran it for 3 years. and
They are in the bylaws.
Had it for Sundays and
I was a little shocked when I saw Sundays. I'm like,
the Patriots schedule, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It did,
We
last year's meeting schedule revolved around the Patriots. And look what they did
TV
for
schedule
us.
for the football.
Nothing. Did you make the motion for
Wednesdays.
Wednesday nights?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
I can't do the third Wednesdays.
Neither can I, but for different reasons. I've got a bank board meeting the third Wednesday
Okay,
that goes into the early evening.
okay.
The third, the other Wednesday's fine.
Doesn't the school board meet first and third Wednesdays?
It's a different committee, it's not school board.
Okay.
The school budget committee's been meeting Thursdays,
Okay,
so, but I do have that one Wednesday I can't be here.
Yeah.
the third Wednesday.
Yes.
So do we want to have our quarterly meetings on the fourth Wednesday of the month? Wait, does it always have a fourth Wednesday?
Or last, fourth or last.
Fourth or last, okay. Is that okay that I added that? I just want to make sure.
As long as it's not a Sunday, I don't care.
You don't care? No Sundays?
No Sundays.
All in favor of moving to budget committees at the last fourth Wednesday of the month? Yes, aye.
you're making it one Wednesday a month?
Quarterly, for our quarterly meetings.
Because you
I haven't,
you can't do the,
I know I can't do the
no, I'm
budget,
just saying,
yeah.
we don't want it to be one Wednesday a month and then we get into November, you can't. It's gonna have to be-
When we get closer to the budget cycle, we will, this is just for April, July, that, and then, once we get our other members and we get going and we have our liaisons, then we will try to set our schedule for the end of the year. at the next meeting. I'm just trying to set the first couple of reviewing them, and then we'll have a lot of meetings in the fall.
So what are those dates?
Did you say the 14th? I did check, there are 4 Wednesdays. But there's also more than 4.
Right, that's my
Okay.
concern.
Do 4th or last?
4th.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you said last.
1, 2.
I wrote last.
April 24th.
Okay. I didn't bring my calendar.
1, 2, 3. And October 23rd.
Oh, wait.
Hold on, I missed something. I know, I missed a bunch of stuff, sorry.
There's 5.
July 24th.
5 in July.
Yeah. April 24th and July 24th. Is that okay with everyone? And then at the July meeting, we will set the schedule for the fall for all of the departmental meetings.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Everybody will get it.
Everyone, so we can set it, but we'll try to set liaison sooner than later. As we start to review, there may be questions that we'll have a committee member go to the department head for.
It might be a good idea for you to, especially for the new members, to send out or have for either April or July, or maybe even April, what the department, what the liaisons are, but what departments they might get. In other words, what are the eligibility for the departments as to who, rather than.
Yep, I have the whole list of all the departments and what
Just again, more for the new people to see
which all of
what's
the
out
committees
there
and all the budgets. So they got everyone got the sheet that Paula sent with so they know all the different department numbers and who's what. So I think everyone kind of knows. We'll talk about when we assign the liaison if everyone has a preference of a department or has a conflict that they can't support that department. So, okay. Is there any other business that we wanted to take into?
I'll go out on a limb. My only suggestion, more so for the older members than the newer members, because they haven't seen how a particular meeting goes when the departments come in. And, a lot of the feedback last year, and I'm kind of in limbo because I'm the selectman's rep, so there are times when I'd like to say something or make a suggestion, maybe even to cut something, but I really probably can't do that. However, if there's an issue that comes up, I'm using you for an example, but because you're a good example to use. So if John's looking at his particular department thing there, and he's discussed things with his department head, and he really feels that, based on year-to-date and all that stuff, that this particular, not necessarily a line item, but this particular budget, we should be cutting by 10 grand. You have the conversation, John's got to make the motion, and John's got to get a second, so that thing will either go or not go. And that's what didn't happen last year. Everybody had comments about all this stuff, and they get mad about it, but nobody had the chutzpah to make the motion. Now, John makes the motion, I second it, and there's 8 of us here, or 7 of us here, and the vote's, 5-3 for it, then but at that point in time, that budget item line gets cut. If it's the other way around, then it stays. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't get brought up again, the big issue with the school shooter training. I mean, that was on, that was off, there was a big discussion over $6,500, and ultimately got taken out, and he got it put back on at the deliberative. But you guys, this is just me, but that was some of the problem. That was,
Right. So you're right, Chuck, and I think subconsciously, the hesitancy for people doing that is that each of us, for a variety of reasons and experiences, has more or less knowledge about various departments and budgets. And there's almost a sense that, this should be cut. And one could make the motion and probably convince that a cut be made. But what's lacking, and I think what makes people uncomfortable, is there isn't comprehensive policy or set of principles that apply to all departments. And that's why, having gone through as a young guy with a lot of responsibility in my 20s, Proposition 2.5, where I had to cut millions. I was responsible for cutting millions out of a budget and being told by older people, and I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't in favor of it. And there was going to be, you know, buildings were going to burn down, children were going to starve, or whatever. You know what? The place is thriving. In fact, tax caps work, and it's the only way to control spending, in my experience. The spending will only stop when it stops. But I think that but back to what you said, you're right. You should make a motion, try to get a second. But you also, I think there's a feeling that there ought to be a rational across-the-board policy that treats all departments and all municipal efforts more or less the same and rationally. And that doesn't happen under the current setup, through nobody's fault. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't, and I hear what you're saying, I think, but I don't think that if you, of course you could add something too, but if you're gonna cut 10,000.
That's the other problem.
Well, I mean, again, same thing, if the department head pushes and says you need to have that, then, you know, and it's explained and justified, then you make the motion in there, but I don't think if we cut $10,000 from the highway department, that we should be cutting $10,000 from the police department or the fire department to make it equal for all of the.
No, but some things. Yeah, I understand.
And again, it's just the point of it. Let's not go through the year again, and if there really is an issue with something that somebody has, again, you're going to be working with the department head, and they may or may not be happy with what you're suggesting. Now, it may be very well something that you see on their budget that they don't see. That happened 2 years ago when I think Rick was on. He had the police department with Joel, and not Rick. Nick was on. He worked with Joel. You know, they worked hard together, and they cut that budget down by a significant amount. And again, Joel knew it was no fault of his, but between the two, that budget came in, you know, where everybody had anticipated it to be, and they worked hard with it, and did make some cuts, but they both agreed to the cuts. So anyway, I just think that, you know, we've got to, and again, as I say, I don't think I can, but, you know, if there's something that is there that, you know, we really feel that it needs to be cut, it needs to be cut. I mean, it's the only way, you know, we can control the budget. I mean, if it's, and again, this year's budget was a misnomer. It was up 18%, 8% of that money was reimbursement for the ARPA funds and the grants for the roadways and stuff. So it was explained, but it really is misleading, and I hopefully we can pull that out of the budget on the sideline to explain that when we do that this year, because the budget really wasn't, whatever the final number was, 19% or something. So again, just my thought on it is that we have to.
I think when we set our meeting, when we set the schedule, if we want to put a procedure on how to make those cuts or how to make the motions, I think we should do that. I think we need to, I feel like last year people were uncomfortable doing that almost, and I don't know why.
It's hard.
I think it was more that people were discouraged from doing that.
Yeah. Yep.
Not that I have any say, but can I make a recommendation when you assign your liaisons that if you already did it, you do something different? Because then it teaches, yes, then you learn a different department or a different committee. I know, go away. Well, it's easy to sit with what you're comfortable with because you know it, but new, fresh eyes on a different budget is going to be fresh eyes on a different budget. Yeah. Instead of being comfortable with what you always do.
Yeah, I haven't had the same departments or committees for 2 years in a row. So I think it depends. I think we'll look at it I think some of the bigger departments, sometimes it's easier to have an understanding, but then new set of eyes is always good. And we can always see how many people we can get and share departments, but that will never happen. I'm hoping, share work.
I wonder, John, what if, I wonder, you might have an answer for it, Stacy, but I wonder, to eliminate that hesitation of, geez, I don't want to cut the fire department $20,000, but, you know, I really think that they've over budgeted based on their, you know,
Giving back.
on the monthly month. Is it possible, I haven't seen it done, to agree to have the budget, if it's $9.2 million, and say we want $200,000 cut out of the budget, a lump sum, don't, because we can't line item anyway, but just, you know, this is what we want to do, the budget's going to be, whatever, 9 million, there's $200,000 to be cut. And then, you know, we'd have to figure out where the probably ends up back with the selectmen, but it would end up that that's what the budget committee wants, that's what the budget committee's budget's going in at. We have to make that work, rather than the individual.
So we could give you whatever number we wanted? We can give you.
Same token, you can give it back to your department chair and say, cut.
Well, we have done, we did that, and that actually was very successful.
It was.
But only because they embraced it. And there was a lot of angst about it, and they ended up doing it unanimously, but they weren't individually in favor of it, but they ended up embracing it.
And last year, we went out, we, meaning the budget committee and or the selectmen too, and said, look, guys, you know, it was a tough year last year, this year we want, well, we talk about zero-based budgeting, but you know you can't do that, you know you can't do that in school. However, the departments, the big departments, the three, you know, departments that carry the budget, were all said and done, was all around 5%, which reality is, that's not a bad number to be at. What killed us last year was the insurance and all the rest of that, which is going to kill us again, whatever the numbers were. And when you look at the actuals on here, Paula was not too far off, because I'm a big thing of saying, well, let's not worry about the guy that takes insurance that doesn't. You know, let's cut it by X amount of dollars. But when we look at the actuals year to year, it came out pretty close.
Are you saying that we're not going to be able to get any changes made to the insurance expense for next year's budget?
What we're working on, the retirement was the big nut, and we can't do anything with that. We're going out and looking at new health care insurance, et cetera. And we're also looking at liability, which is with Primex, but they do most of the state and all the town buildings. They're going to be hard to beat, and their prices aren't that bad. It's the dental and the health insurance, and Paula is starting to look at that, because we haven't looked at that in 4 years.
Right, because open enrollment is November, December?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
is
if
there
there's a
a
new system
chance
put
that
in,
we
they
can
would
get
have to-
something in place for the next calendar year?
Well, that is a priority
Okay.
for the selectmen and we've discussed it. I don't know if Paula's working on it yet or not, but, because she's trying to close out the year and all the rest of it, but.
$750,000.
I'll put it, make a note so that we discuss it at our next meeting to make sure that is.
So $750,000 increase was just on insurance and retirement.
Yeah,
So
that was, yeah.
that's huge, that was a
That was
dramatic.
enormous.
that was
And it may
enormous.
possibly be that it cannot be helped, but
Correct, but-
without direct knowledge, without it not having gone out for bid, you can't speak to, was it a valid increase or?
Just thinking about cuts, can you put in a 3-year plan where this coming year you want to see a 4% budget cut, the next year, you know what I mean, to get it reasonable? I don't know, I don't know, I'm just thinking about that.
So I would urge everybody, in the material that you shared,
Yep.
look at sections 5B and 5C of the state statute, municipal budget law. Tax cap.
Yep.
The tax cap, I'm not gonna read it because it's misleading, it shall be. The tax cap can be either a fixed dollar amount or fixed percentage applied to the amount of taxes raised by the town for the prior fiscal year, as reported in the Department of Revenue on the form.
So that gets interesting when you're talking about a town, because we have school that does their own thing and town. So we can only, if we passed a tax cap
Yes.
by the voters, it would be applied on the town portion alone.
Yes.
But right now, the legislation is going through to do it for the school as well.
Yes.
So we would pull that together, but that, it wouldn't reduce, like, I think it's kind of a weird thing, because it wouldn't reduce our taxes by 6% if we said tax cap, because 3/4 of our tax rate is school.
But we can only control what we can control.
Correct.
And my experience with this stuff is, again, if we were to cap it at 4%, and we went through that 4%, and
Yep.
people saw that it could be done, but that it was done with cuts in pain, and we won't discuss what the pain could be, but when it's 85% salaries, you know what it is.
Yep.
And things being cut, the political dynamic for the whole community changes. And I think that you would find, my experience, the school department would be in a much weaker position to keep increasing spending at the rate in which they've increased it. I mean, they could go ahead and do it, but again, all of this stuff it's a constantly evolving thing and moving parts. And as you, I didn't realize that the legislature was considering it, but the other thing is, if it went through and it worked for the town, and were available for the schools,
Yeah. So that's right now what is going on. So it is definitely something that we want to discuss as we move through budget cycle on a tax cap and how to go about that, if that's something that the budget committee wants to put in place.
And I have a caveat for that, for the school budget, is everybody wants to complain about their tax rate and everybody wants to blame it on the town budget, but nobody shows up to the school board meetings unless they've got a pet project they want funded. They don't show up to the deliberative session because as supervisor of the checklist, we have to be there to check them in, and it's embarrassing. And tax bills came out, we're all on Facebook saying, "Bah, bah, bah, bah," but nobody supports cutting anything if it's their pet project, and nobody goes and,
well, the same thing happens with us.
Yeah.
Let's face it, I mean, see, round up the usual suspects, that's who's there.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if we could make a greater awareness to our citizenship about how important their voices truly are. I mean, these are all open meetings. Who comes?
But you're on the select board, so you don't. We need more public. Audience, okay.
So that's one thing I'd like to see change about the budget committee this year, is that we get more involvement throughout the year from citizens.
Okay. So we will try to make sure things get posted way ahead of time, what we're doing, how we're going about it,
Yeah,
and see if we can get, I am not a big proponent of Facebook. I will post on the town Facebook, but I am not a big Facebook person, but just because of the comments, but.
I'll share it.
You'll share it?
And turn
Okay.
off comments.
Any other board business that we want to discuss?
So our bylaws contain 4 RSAs that are outdated. I went through them today because I had nothing else to do. And I checked the current, version, and we need to update the RSAs that are obsolete in our packet. And I have the old Municipal Association guide for 2022. Is there a new one that's out now, or are we gonna get a link to that guide?
I don't believe so.
What about the training that,
Training hasn't been posted yet. That training takes place in September. As soon as the NHMA makes us aware, I will send everyone an email. There's usually 2 sessions, one in Southern and one in Northern. The NHMA puts it on. It was actually really good.
Okay, so I'll send you the ones that are outdated, so we can
Yeah.
change those, switch them out.
Yep, yeah, I actually noted that as well.
And
so.
then the third point is, the school budget's the big elephant in the room, that's the biggest driver of property taxes. But since we have declining enrollment, which is very gradual in Sanborn, it's supposed to bring down our budget, or at least make sure it's stable, because there is inflation that drives up costs. But for the town, I don't see us easily cutting a budget if our population is not decreasing, is actually growing. And with inflation being 20% cumulatively over the last few years, if we put a tax cap, which is like a price control on our budget, we're gonna have to cut, we're gonna have shortages, because we have inflation and we have labor shortages. So I'd love a tax cut, okay, believe me, but I'm just being real here. We're gonna have to cut services. It's not like, oh, we'll just reduce that price. You can't do it.
I think we want to discuss where we are going. I think if you look at the budget right now, there's about $400,000 that shouldn't be in the budget next year. So if you look at that, we should be able to reduce the budget.
There are items that might be, like software that we're not using. I mean, I know that happens.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be looking for. But just looking for a cap without looking for discretionary cuts, with cost rising,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's like.
No, I agree. I mean,
It's gonna be really hard.
if you listen to the select board meeting
Look,
on
I
Monday.
teach economics, believe me, I
Yeah.
look at inflation all day
No.
long. It's a big problem.
If kind of, in the back of my mind, I heard the fire chief talk about the 2 new housing developments that are coming in and the additional resources that he may need because of these housing developments going into Kingston, one at the golf course and another one. I don't remember what he said. But he said, what?
There's
3. There's 3 new housing developments at the planning board that could get approved this year, and he would need additional resources. So you're right, we have to look at what's coming. If he does need additional resources, like he talked about additional full-time people, a truck, depending on how tall the building is, what he would need. So I think he mentioned that on Monday at the select board.
He did.
And I think that's all something that we should be discussing or having them present as we continue to review the budget. Yeah.
Does the planning board have impact fees?
They do. It goes to police, library, and highway. No? Fire in the library, school.
Is
Okay.
there fire?
Yeah.
Is there fire? I didn't.
Yes, fire has maybe around 85,000 in it. And I have discussed that with him as far as why he's not using some of that because it does expire at a particular point in time.
Library.
He's saving that up. He's saving that up a little bit because we're gonna need a new ambulance. And he doesn't have enough in the fund right now because the ambulance is like $800,000. So that was that, but there is a fund that he can use for a lot of extra stuff. If a pump dies or something
Right,
like that.
and so, but again, with those buildings coming in, there should be, depending on what the impact fee is, a significant amount of money that would end up going in as well. And if I remember the discussion about the ambulance, running its own ambulance and the billing and all of that, wouldn't some of that money go towards an ambulance?
Yeah. Ambulance. fund.
Okay. So,
Good.
He's got plenty of money, it just may not be, it takes, what do you say, a year, 2 years to have to order it on.
Yeah.
okay,
But
but,
we're talking about, so I think one of the things we need to talk about budget is that it needs to be appropriated to be spent. So it may not be coming from tax money, but it would need to be appropriated in the budget and then offset by potentially impact fees or additional revenue sources. And I think that's what
is that in a CIP plan?
the CIP plan that the one that we just saw didn't have some of these things that he just brought up, but it should be updated.
Because.
Yep,
in the-
and if you read the bylaws, 2 members of budget committee should be on that, on the CIP committee,
Right,
to put in a assessment for the budget committee.
right, because it makes a difference, it also makes a difference to your voters, if they see that you're working towards, you know, so you may have to wait this year because you have to appropriate it, or, you know, so be it. You know, that's gonna be a whole lot better than getting zapped and going, oh my gosh, where did that come from?
So I think I just want to make a comment on Pam's point about the school population may be decreasing, but the town population is not. And the services have to be commensurate with that. So if we have, I think Chief Pellerin said something about 255 units was the number that's sticking in my head with the 3 new developments. So with that, isn't just the initial impact fee, it's the long term. You have all of those services, that's more roads for Public Works that Public Works has to maintain. That's probably an additional police officer, that's additional EMT, not just the year it was built, like long term, right? So when we're thinking about budget, right, we have to oh yeah, sure, we want to cut spending next year, but then how do we get that back?
Nobody's talking about cutting spending, they're just talking about limiting the growth to something under 40% over 3 years.
Well, sure, but I think that comment is always about salary, and it's always about people.
Because that's over 80% of the budget.
I don't know how you have services without the people. I mean, so it's just this fine line that we have to walk, right? Where if you cap salaries or you don't give promotions and we lose people, but we still have more people coming into town, like how do we manage that? So that's just that really tough conversation to have with growth, right? We want growth to spread out the tax base, but with that comes more services.
PM, do we know what's going on with Fremont? How many have decided to
They
remain?
voted to go with other districts other than Sanborn. So
But if you're-
Epping and Pinkerton Academy.
So, but if you're currently a freshman, sophomore, or junior at Sanborn, you can
From
continue.
Fremont, you'll continue,
Right.
and they'll have people. Fremont will not be rejoining Sanborn, but they'll continue with us for another year until fall of '26. In the fall of '26, it'll impact enrollment freshmen. The students that are currently here will continue until they finish their degree.
And they're choosing to remain with us?
No,
No, I mean the ones that are currently enrolled. Are they gonna
apparently, I believe
Yeah,
so, yeah.
okay.
So do those kids have an option? In other words, will they be given a choice? Yes, you can finish here, but if you want to go with your younger brother or sister to the new opportunity, you can do that.
I'm not sure how the contract is drafted for the MOU with the new districts yet. We may have an agreement that will continue serving them until they move, but I really don't know the details. Some students may decide to move their tuition. I'll have to ask Tom, the superintendent.
curious, okay.
Yeah. Most of them seem to want to stay with our high school.
Well, that's, once you start something, you want to.
Right.
Do we, anything further? All right,
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn, second. Second. All in favor? All right. Thank you.